What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Bo with the Dr. Bo Convo. Today we got a super great show. Dr. Chris Zaino is on board. Been in the chiropractic game for a super long time. Former Mr. Universe, business consultant, entrepreneur. Just a super awesome conversation with a lot of great insight. And I think in many ways you're going to be able to take something from this and empower yourself to take your health back in your own hands, which ultimately is the goal of the show, is to learn something every single time. Again, excited to have this guy on again because I think we are going to have some more conversations about some cool topics. I hope you gained something from today's show. Reach out with any questions, and let's cue that intro.
It's just trying to get the marketing stuff down at the office. So that tends to be, when I talk to most doctors, that tends to be the issue. Like they hire some type of marketing, it starts good or where it trickles down to like 3, 4 new patients a week, and it's just not enough to sustain a practice, whether it be Cairo Candy. People I know, that's good. So I'm going to talk to this one company called Brand Lab, where I don't know if you heard of them. They teach you how to do the ads and stuff. Cause I figure like that, I can't control it. So if we're having a shitty ad week, I'm like, all you can do is throw more money. But I think if I take ownership of the thing that is the biggest problem, every office that has done amazing, like 100, 200 new they do their, like the doctor, he does his own ads.
Yeah.
A good buddy of mine has, I think they have 30 clinics in Chicago. He stopped practicing and he does all the ads for all the clinics. And that's the key. That's the key. So he goes like to the point where he found that he got to the point where he's like, that is a way more important role for me than adjusting people. Cause he's like, I could pump in, I don't know, I could, like, he's got to dial down where it's easy versus I find with some marketing companies, it's like, it's hit or miss. Or they'll be a good 1 week or down, and they'll blame you for something like, well, you're not like, you're not following up with leads or something. I'm like, hey man, a good ad, Brian Tracy said it best. He's like, a good ad is a good ad. Like, immediately if the ad's good or not. Like if it doesn't pull, then it sucks. So there's no waiting. So anyway, I feel like, what do you do for marketing?
We're good at like local marketing. I would say like the community aspect is strong, but that's something I just read Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Yeah, Russell.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Just kind of opening up my eyes and how to present, like, here's your dilemma, here's your pain point, here's what you're thinking, I know what you're thinking, here's how I can get ahead, like identifying their pain points before. Right. And so I'm trying to think of ways to get ads where I'm communicating that, where it's like one of us speaking in terms of either writing or voice, in terms of here's your main objectives before you even set them to me, and I'm going to answer them, type of thing. So
right.
I've been kind of looking at how to reinvent that, but not very consistent. I will say that in terms of online marketing, for sure. I kind of fall into that trap of like, oh, it's working, we're busy. And then we could be busier.
No. Yeah. Like I'm even thinking about bringing dinners back, I haven't done dinner in a while.
Yeah. So anyway, we found this CrossFit gym. It's more of a like beginners CrossFit gym, and they do a really good job with technique, and it's mostly female, and it's just a cool culture. And man, I just go and hang out with them every other week and share like a 5 to 10 minute thing of like what I'm seeing and how cool it is. And we connect well. And like, I went and did a little 5-minute spiel the other day, and I got 16 people to sign up to come in the next week. Like,
that's great. So what do you just talk? What do you just talk about? Just
the big thing for me is that why I like that gym is I watched the owner quit drinking about 4 or 5 years ago, and then she did this, and she just kept making good decisions, like how we talked about, like, if I do it, I bet I'll attract the people that I need to.
Right.
And I just watched her change her life for the better, and I watched the business explode. And you walk in and you just feel good, like it's a family, it's a culture, it's an encouraging room, but yet they still want to beat each other, which is very much, I'm still competitive, even though I want my teammate to do well. So the first day I was in there, I knew, I was like, this is how I want people to feel when they come into my office. And it's been, 5 years, and we've done great with them in terms of relationships. So
that's awesome.
I really like how they put up and just shut up. You know what I mean?
Dude, I love it. That's
Or put
great.
up and shut up. Yeah. Anyway,
Gotcha. Awesome, bud.
so
Do it.
round two, we're gonna try this again. Tell me what's going on with you, man. What's new this week in the last couple weeks?
This week's good, man. We just like clinic. Well, for me, my right now I'm doing more personal stuff, like moving
Yeah.
my fiance in. So I'm just kind of focusing on her and getting that doing. But the office at the same time, like that's what I was coming to. Like I said, inside job, right? It's like, well,
Hmm.
you know, like a couple weeks ago, I lost a shitload on a fund I was in, right? Shitload, like a lot, big loss. And
Sure.
like all these things that cause stress in my life were things that I can't control. And no, and I don't mean like, and someone could say, well, you can't control everything in life. No, I understand that, but it's like I
Right.
can control where I put my money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could put it back into my office, right? And even though I can't, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say you could control, like you have better, yeah, if it's in my office, I have a better hand
Ah,
on the pulse and giving it to someone and hoping someone, like there's too many other variables. Or
yeah.
like we said, marketing. It's like not happy with it. Well, I can't because I'm not running the ads. I'm not doing that. I'm just paying money. And because you pay money doesn't mean you have control. Just like
Right.
I'm paying money and like they're bringing a result. And if I like it or I don't like it, I don't really have much say. And if I do have a say, it's just questions and they can bring me back some questions. So it's like, well, I need to control that or maybe understand it more. So I have a little bit more control.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
found out like what are the things that are causing stress in my life? And I was like, oh, these are things, and it's not being a control freak. It's like, well, I could actually, develop the skill to either have a better understanding or B, take it over,
Yeah.
or take it over understanding and then actually hire people to, just tell them how to do it. Where I just because I've just seen too many docs that are when they're ranking, like, well, who does your marketing? Oh man, I just took it over myself. Really? You're like, yeah, I learned how to do it. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Because I think because you care, and I think there is something where like
Hmm.
when you really care about your thing, like you said, that CrossFit thing, like you walk in there, it feels good because that person has a sense of connection and caring versus
Right.
just like anybody could open up a CrossFit gym and bring people in there, but you feel something different. So what's so the different is that it factor, right? So what's the it factor? Why does it feel different in there? Is it caring? Like, can you feel someone caring? Yeah, I think you could feel someone caring. Can you feel like,
Hmm.
right? Like, can you feel it attracts a certain amount of people? So you can't. So if I was to say, if I don't like CrossFit and I opened up a place here and I filled it with people and, I'm doing everything that one is doing, how come I wouldn't have the same result, right? So there's that go
Yeah.
back into that intention and fourth dimensional thing. Like they care about it, and like I'm sure everything they do, they're doing it. Therefore, no one's going to care more about your practice or your family than you, no
Right.
matter how good the company is. So I realized like, but then there's that point. Well, you can't take on everything. That's another argument. Well, you can't do it all. Well, you're right, but I think I've seen some amazing people. They learned it. Okay. They almost took a lateral move. They learned
Yeah.
something. They learned it really well. And then they delegated off the monotonous things or the reproducible things. But they were ultimately the one that made that decision. And so if they won, they won by their sword. If they died or they lost, they fell on their sword. So at
Yep.
least they're like, at least I feel good about taking responsibility of being the one that made it win or lose. So I just think
Yeah.
taking that personal role and just doing that really made a difference. I saw it, whether it be docs I coach and stuff like that, the ones who do really well and they're rocking it. I mean, I don't know if like, dude, they learn the skill at some point or they learned it
Yeah.
enough to be able to know what to look for in a marketing team, right? To just distill that, or B, they did it
Yep.
themselves or in-housed it. So another guy I talked to, he's like, yeah, I was doing that, but then I just brought it in-house. I'm like, oh, okay. So like, but for us to bring it in-house, we would have to know to be able to teach it, right? So
Right. Yeah. And I think with, intentional marketing, right? I think that's the trap that I've fallen into, or people can, is, company A is so great at marketing
mhm,
and they'll do this, and here's all our stats, and here's all the happy
mhm.
testimonial videos. And it's so easy to think, oh, okay, yeah, here's a little bit about my practice. I'm going to keep looking this way and go away. But I think one mistake I've made is when I delegate, that doesn't mean I'm done with it. That means that I've eliminated some sweat labor time, right?
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
I'm still in charge. I'm still the guy that needs to
Mhm.
oversee and follow up and guide and lead. And I I took that for, oh, sweet, I don't have to do anything in the last few years versus like, oh no, it's just a different way of doing things.
No, you're right.
Um,
No,
and
you,
that's been a hard thing for me to kind of a trust somebody, but also be like, okay, now that I'm doing it, how do I manage someone else doing this without micromanaging or without ignoring? Or it can be tough, man. I think in intentional marketing, you need more intention when you do delegate something away because now you're managing a person, not just a thing, right?
right, right. It's how you're teaching them and communicate with them. But I think, I think as hairy as that could sound, I think if you do it, I just think the reward of doing it and going through it and figuring out is way more satisfying than the stress of like always like being like, wow, because to me, I always felt I used to say, and each clinic could be different, but I used to say like, hey, 100 new patients solves all problems, meaning that
Yeah.
like you won't be focusing on the people that didn't sign for whatever reason.
Mhm.
Because you'd be like, even if you had a 30% close rate, you'd be up 30, like it's like it really is. So you have an abundance there because sometimes when you have limited new patients, you're going to focus on everyone counts, right? So it's like
Mhm.
you're going to focus out of the three that day, you're gonna like go in really needy, like, oh, I really need, right? You're gonna so versus like, hey, we got eight, and let's say four signed up, four didn't. On a bad day, four not signing up was like horrific. But on a day when you had more new pay, it's just perspective. It's like, oh, hey, four came in, they're thinking about it or they can do it, but four is they're in, so we're great. So you come out a little bit more positive, because
Yeah,
you have an
I
abundant,
agree.
like you come in with more of an abundance, I mean, you got two new patients in one day. You're going to come in with a scarcity mindset. No matter how great your practice is, like you're like, crap, there's only two. I need to sign up one or two, right? So it's not a,
Hmm.
so if you could increase those new patients some way, shape, or form, it helps ease that. It doesn't give you an excuse to not do your A game, but
You're right.
I just think in coming with some type of scarcity is not good. It's not good. It's not needy. You're pushing, you're squeezing, you're forcing. It's not good.
I agree. So, kind of going off of some of this stuff, one thing that I'm
Yeah.
interested in that I think you do a really good job of is you're doing all kinds of stuff, like personal stuff. You're doing chiropractic stuff on different layers. You've got, like you just mentioned, your personal life is kind of upgrading in this way
Yeah.
to kind of blend now some living situations. So,
Yep.
are you a time blocker? Are you a certain days of the week? This is how I do certain things. What does an organizational
Yeah.
overlook look like for you, right? How do you get all this shit done in terms
Right,
of,
right.
I know grit, right? But like, how do you
Yeah.
organize
No, no, no. So
that?
you can't manage time. So that I don't think
Right.
you can manage it. You can manage your energy though. So it's
Cool.
like I have to know when am I most when am I like for me, my mornings are my most energetic, right? Like now's
Yeah,
a good time.
I agree.
For me at 6 p.m. something shifts where physically like I mean I could sit down and listen to something, but I can't even read
Right.
something at 6 at night. I can't do anything physical. It's like I'm not the one that burns the candle to the midnight. So my mornings are my productive. So I realize that, hey, like I have like I have goals to shoot at. So I need to do these 3 to 5 important things today to keep the needle moving forward. So
Hmm.
I do that in the morning, right? So my thing is like energy management. The more energy and focus I have, the quicker it gets done.
Right.
Well, if I multitask, it'll take a little bit longer. And so I know it's like, okay, like I have like a thing on my phone, like a reminders, and I'll show you kind of like, so, I have this thing on my, let me see, like, I have
Oh
these
yeah.
reminders. So
Yeah.
it's like, I know they're on there. So if I had that idea, I don't like memory management. So I'll be like, wow, I gotta do these videos, I gotta talk to this person, like, so I have these things that like kind of need to get done, but all these things are going to move me forward. So it's like,
Right.
I know if I could knock out 1 to 3 of these a day, great. Or at least like there's certain things that can happen in a day. Like it's a process, like
Sure.
like got to get certified here or that. Like it's a process, but at least I know I'm moving forward. And this thing
Hmm.
never ends because you're always adding to it. So, but I'll tell you though, at the end of the year, these things are moving you forward. So I always locate the things that are going to move me forward or that need to be done to move the office
Hmm.
forward. And then I go from there. So I'm more managing my energy. I have to manage my energy versus time
Yeah.
management.
More.
So it's yeah. So I know it's
No,
like
I think
focus them.
that's good, man. It's it is hard, I think, to Because sometimes when you time block and you're looking at time management, you can miss one thing or two things, and then if you're in a sequential schedule, like, well, now everything's backed up, right? Or now everything's off schedule. And so I agree. The app that I started using is called Do exclamation point. And same thing. It's just, you get a little
Yeah.
to-do list on there. You can date them and delete them and cross them off and put it on my home screen, man. And the same thing, like I'm with you. That's why I stopped doing 2 shifts of chiropractic adjusting a day, because that second one was like, I
Yeah.
can't, I can't get going for it,
Yeah.
and this thing, it's just like you're just on it and you look and you cross it off and you want to do it again. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think there needs to be a little bit of a loose
Yeah.
organizational flex to time management, getting stuff done like that.
For instance, like, cause I know, and I heard a lot of guys talk about it, successful guys, they're like, hey, like my goal is these 3 things today. And if I get that done by 10, I'm done. That's
Right.
why. So for them, they're like, hey, the quicker and the more focused I am, hey, when these are done, I'm done. Like, and these guys have 100 million, $200 million companies. So they're like, no, no,
Right.
no. Like I'm done by they're like, my goal is to be done by 10 a.m. They're like, so if it means me waking up at 4 and getting it done, and knowing that if they got to talk to someone, I'm sure that's like after 8 or 9. But it's like for them, they're like, if I get these things done and done, and then that also means there's some days it might take them 18 hours to get it done. Like, but like
Yeah.
it's something where, hey man, I'm trying to get done by 10 a.m. Like, so that means that to them that they're forcing themselves to say, listen, I better be focused because I want to have the rest of the day to myself. So they're going in very super focused. They got things prepared. They do their morning routine and they get their 3 to 4, 3 to 5 things done.
Yep.
And then, for instance, let's say they had 5 things and they got 3 done. Then they had those last 2, they added on to the next day. Like, so like those 2, it was those 2 plus another 2 more things. So they never had 10 things to do, but I think each person's like, hey, I'm good to get the 3 done. Or they know themselves, like, yourselves, like, that's why you
Yeah.
just did the 1 shift to Cairo. It's like, no, I know myself. Like, so I know, like, hey, if I could get 3 heavy things done per day, if it's 3 things, maybe I could throw 2 light ones in, that's 5. But like at 5 is like, for someone, like, that's it. Because after a while, when
Yeah.
7 or 8, and then it gets stressful, right? So it's something where you want to feel like you're winning, right? Right. I'm winning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm winning. I'm in a good mood. I'm done. I got it done. And then there are
Right.
some days, but that also gives you time where there are some days where it's like, all right, honey, like, let's say these guys should write a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the deadline is a certain day, and they're like, I may have to pull like a 24-hour shift here to get this thing done. Like
Yeah.
once in a blue moon. But I think just them knowing that, hey, here's my objectives I got to get done, and they shoot for those, they get those done by the morning or afternoon, then they give themselves, see, this is the issue with me. I would get them done and I felt good. What else now can I get done? Like, and add another 1 or 2, or like
Yeah.
I'll start going into tomorrow's, and then, but they're just wise enough to be like, no, it's not a race. It's like, it's a marathon. So I'm done with my 3. I'm done. Where I think the what do you call the somewhat immature business person would be like, okay, I did my 3. Now we try to rush it. And then what happens is
Yeah.
we overload the plate, and then you just wind up like burning yourself out to a little bit, where they just know, hey, I'm going to pace myself. I know these are my 3 every day. I look for my 3 things I got to do. They know it the night before. I'm done with my 3. I'm done. I close the book. I shut the computer down. Right. Versus we'd be like, okay, I did the 3. Let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. Let's
Right.
keep on going, because we think we'll get there faster, but it's the tortoise and the hare. We're going to actually burn our intention down. We'll be less effective, where versus just nailing those 3 most important things done. And that's another thing to successful people. They know the core 3 things they need to do that has the biggest impact on their business or life, right? Like, so we might say we're
Yeah.
going to do these 3 things, but maybe they're not as effective as like, no, these are the 3 pillars that if I just focus on those, I'm going to get 80% of the productivity of my business done. So sometimes I
Yep.
think it comes down to self-awareness and knowing what really, it's funny. The other day I was thinking, before I went to bed, I'm like, what are the things where, what is my recipe? Knowing that if I did this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
I could be eating right, exercising. Like, I know when I exercise, my brain's in a more abundant, sharper, joyful state. I'm just,
Right.
right. So it's like, well, if I exercise, if I'm eating correctly, like, what are the things I must do to guarantee that I'm winning, or I'm in the best possibility to win win the day, and that, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, just be in the right state to do it. So I realized, like, it's tough to really narrow it down to 3 things. It's like,
Yeah.
but when you could really nail it down, like, hey, if I do A, B, and C, then I'm in the best, I am setting myself up for the best situation to win. And so I do, it's total self-awareness, total self-awareness.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big one because as I was even listening to you, I'm kind of thinking like, well, how do you balance what do you say yes to and what do you say no to? And I think knowing those pillars of your
Yeah.
life, right? And these are the most important things. So my faith, my family, and my service and chiropractic. Well, okay, are those three pillars being supported by my three most common habits or the way I spend my time, right? And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's when you start at the core. I mean, chiropractors are easy to do that with just because we're always thinking cause over symptom. But man, when you start, like you said, at the pillar and does this build it up or does this break it down? It actually becomes pretty simple. It's just more difficult because we don't always get the answer we want. We get the answer we need, right?
And how about this? And
But
sometimes we're doing things to feel busy, but they're really not that
yeah,
effective. So we might be doing something that
right.
feels busy. We feel busy, so we feel like we're accomplishing something and we feel like we're moving in the right direction. But really, it just makes us busy, but we're
Well,
spinning our
dude,
wheels.
look at social media. Look at
Yeah, yeah,
cell
yeah.
phone
Oh
games.
yeah,
Yay, Candy Crush! You beat level
yeah, yeah,
92. Here's a fake firework,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, sweet, I can't wait for 93. Meanwhile, you're like, your business is over here, and your employees are looking for you, and your kids are waiting for you out here to, spend time with them, or your body's craving exercise, and
Mhm.
you just get so lost in these little things that you look around and you figure out how many things give you short-term feel good, and it's basically all the stuff we're not talking about paying attention to here, right?
Right. So these little distractions we talked about, the
Huge.
thing that they're distracted because they give us a dopamine kick that your practice may not be giving you because it's something that's monotonous after a while. Like
Right.
it's a dopamine kick that you don't really feel from your relationship anymore because you're kind of getting, it's kind of it's not new and fresh, and
Right.
you don't get from your chiropractic practice because it's like kind of it's you've been doing it for a while, right? So, but
Mm-hmm.
so we're craving this little dopamine kick, but and you feel busy, you feel that your time, but you're not very success. It's not adding to success. It's just adding to an emotional bump, basically.
Yeah.
And
Seriously.
you feel that you accomplished something, but at the end of the day, you didn't really do like Francis Chan said something great. He goes, the biggest failure is not of no, the biggest fear is not of failure, but of being successful at things that don't matter. So why, like, so sometimes you're really successful at things that don't matter. I love
Yeah.
that quote, like, right. And I'm
That's a
I'm
good one.
guilty of that, like, I'm not afraid of failing. I'm afraid of being successful at things that really didn't matter. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, like, we could do things that really feel, and they give you that dopamine kick. There's that, like, or it's gamified, right? So you feel like you won, or you got to the next level. But at the end of the
Right.
day, I was just really freaking busy. Sometimes, even when I'm reading a book, I'm reading the book just because I should be reading now. But it's like, I know that I'm not really present. I'm just like, I'm reading the words and it's not sticking, but I'm
Yeah.
just, so I'm really, I'm not being very successful here. I'm being busy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not being successful. So it's going back to those things that, what are those core things we need to do that are going to move the needle forward in some way, shape, or form? That's why I just told you, I start with it. I'm like, today I'm going to find out, like, I need to know how to do marketing, online stuff. I knew how to do dinners and stuff and speaking, but it's like now I need to learn something because my biggest frustrations are like every Monday going, hey guys, what's going up with the new patient? Like, I'm like, okay, like I could either complain or now I could get into something that I didn't necessarily want to learn this skill, but shit, like
Right.
I'd rather, I mean, at least you know what? I'll either get two things. I'll get clarity on how much longer the process needs to take, or I'll get clarity on, hey, listen, I could take this over, or I could help build a team to be able to do it the way I want it to be, right? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna find out something in the process
Well,
that'll give me a
and
better
we
understanding.
yeah, we talked about this last time on the first time we tried to do this, where
Yeah.
we essentially, for everybody listening on this one that is recording, I forgot to push record. That's what happened. And it was pretty perfect though, because in my frustration and I was so bummed because it was like, oh,
Yeah.
and you and I had talked though that the goal is to get to the end. The goal is to get good and love the doing of the work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The art is the doing. And you texted me that right away. And it was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that is what and so
Right. Yeah.
when you can be excited then about just, the push up, not the look after 100 days of push-ups, right? I want to do the actual work because that's the love of the game, right? That's the, and that For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner, that clear the mechanism where you can
Mhm.
like hone everything in. Like
Right.
we are so blessed chiropractors to have a career that we want to do that with, and we let these little things get our focus off track, I think, by, oh, I don't want to be a marketer. I don't want to spend my time on a computer. I don't want to do this. Well, I didn't want to change poopy diapers and get up at 2 a.m. when my kids were born either, but I'm a father, so I did it, right? Like
Right.
at some point when the love is big enough for what we do, and the intention is that I'm going to do this way for the right reasons for my people, I think the grind then starts to almost become fun. Like I do not want to sit at a computer, but I'll sit here for 8 hours and learn how to do funnels and webinars and things like this because it feeds what I can do in terms of
Right.
service. Right. And I think
Perfect.
once you attach it to that, it's so much different. It's not even the same conversation.
And it really wasn't that difficult, right? When you got into it and stuff like that, once you became, it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not saying things were easy, but it really wasn't as daunting as you thought it would be. It just was a matter of like, man, because I saw enough people, like you were talking about Russell Brunson's, I get the book there about his, basically his webinar, flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that could be a webinar flow, that could be a talk. It's a night, it's a 60 to
100%.
90. So it's just he found a system of
Mm-hmm.
communication, right? And I just think he spent a lot of money in learning and training and speakers and stuff to get this psychology of a system down. That is
Yep.
the best way to persuade in a good per to bridge the gap, to get them from, problem to solution, and, identify the problem. This is when you need a solution, and this is what I deliver, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was years and hours and 100, like, so but he was able to systemize it, make it reproducible. Every talk he does follows this script. He doesn't deviate from it,
Mm-hmm.
or flow rather. And it's like it
Flow, yeah.
works. It's like plug it in. So it's like someone did all this work, but look at all the work that he had to do. So we just have
Yeah.
to do a little bit, and it's all in the book. It's like I literally made a PowerPoint where I made a PowerPoint that was a template. So now I could just plug in, like it would be slide one, talk about this. So I just made the PowerPoint, and I like I had stuff that would always stay the same, but here was the things to just reframe or re
Yep.
so it's there, so I didn't have to redo a PowerPoint every time. So no, it's very effective. I did a lot of my webinars and stuff following that thing. In fact, not me, but most marketing companies just follow the same template. I
Mm-hmm.
had a company that worked with a really good marketer, and yeah, they just followed the same. It was just they followed the same thing. They did it for you. They just asked for it, and they
Yep.
just plugged it into the same thing. And you're like, oh, after a while, you can really recognize, oh, this is his type of formula, and which is great. And so there's nothing wrong with that. It's effective. It's consistent. I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people appreciate consistency, and it
Yeah.
was able to get a message across in a very elegant way to again answer the person's questions before they had it. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big thing. People don't stay with you because there's some type of confusion, and
Mm-hmm.
or they don't think you could help them because there's a question that they had that wasn't answered. So if you could give those questions ahead of time, you almost, they feel like you're reading their mind, or A or B, they're saying, well, he's talking to me. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
And I think
And really,
that's, yeah.
that is that moment of everything I'm doing. Let's just keep it in a chiropractic sense for this statement is, okay, everything I do to talk to this new patient should be about them getting better and their nervous system regulating their body better. Well, if you just take like 5 seconds to think about that, you probably already start speaking that way because everything you're saying is geared towards them.
Right.
Right? You're going to identify their main concerns before they say them and their questions and their needs because you are caring for that person. You're no longer converting somebody.
Right.
And I think as a new chiropractor, looking back 6, 7, 8 years ago, it's like there was a scarcity. There was I was worried how I would look or sound talking in front of people. And B, I drive away and judge my success based on how many names were on the paper and phone numbers.
Right.
And not that those aren't bad things to measure, but the reality was, did I connect with someone? Did I make someone laugh? Did I really meet someone? Did I let anybody into my life at all? Did I really connect with a human being today? Or was I just a thing that spoke? Right. And I think for me, when it started getting easier to market and get new patients and things, is when everything I did was the intention of this person needs what I have. And I think that service based mindset allows you to flow into those things of answering their questions, because everything you're thinking is about them and no longer you. And that's been a big help. And I think, again, you go back to self-awareness. Like, if I'm that aware of what I'm trying to do with my time, talk about like things that seem unimportant, just stay away now, because I'm like, nope, that's here. I'm right here. That doesn't correlate with what I'm trying to do. And I think self-awareness can be hard to hear and go, well, what the heck is that? And ultimately, that's a great start, is what do I want to do and why do I want to do it? Okay, now where should I go? You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people do that, because we're judging based off of the world and
No.
social media and vanity, you know?
Yeah, and one cool thing chiropractic has is it has a purpose of things. Because I noticed, like, when I pulled out of the clinic a little bit more, like, um, you know, I don't know, man. It's just like it's something important about having some type of purpose. That's one thing,
Mm-hmm.
like out of the human needs, I felt chiropractic definitely gave us was a little bit of sense of purpose.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
like,
agree.
I'm not saying having like a cookie business, there's no sense of purpose. I'm sure you could find it in there, right? But it's like there's
Right.
just, like you said, you're going in there and you're focusing on this person. Like, hey, what's your problem? Okay, so we identify the problem. We know they're in pain.
Yep.
And they're like, well, we got to find the cause of it. If you can find the cause of it, then that's your solution. Yes. And this is how we could provide that solution. Is that something which you want? And I think there's just, it may not be the profession that makes $200 million a year. Okay. But I gotta be careful how I say this, and I don't know how that, but I've seen people make two. I've coached guys who made 100, and they just didn't have a sense of purpose that your office has. And sometimes that sense of purpose could actually be more fulfilling than having $200 million a year, even though $200 million a year solves a lot of problems. But there's just something,
Right.
there's something because they're searching, they're not, because what happens is, like you said, a lot of times a scoreboard is about, like you said, having a bunch of names on a piece of paper. How much volume did you see this week? How many people signed up? But one thing about those statistics, they're unquenchable. So let me explain what that
Mm-hmm.
means. It will never be enough. It'll never be like you'll have a good week. Let's say, because if you did more than you used to, wow, that's that little bit of dopamine hit. But then,
Right.
now you want to do a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. So what happens is it's unquenchable. And if you think about the term unquenchable, it's basically saying it will never be good enough. And so you're setting yourself in a trap of never being good enough and never being
Ugh.
there and never being happy. And because you're basing your happiness off those scoreboards. But there's something about, but it needs to be at a certain level, because if you're in scarcity, if you're not making a certain amount of income,
Right.
that makes you very scared and scarce and uncomfortable, and you're still not able to, like, so you want to find, you want to be able to be successful enough in business where financially things are taken care of, so you can really fully go in there and totally like care about the person. Because the only
Yeah.
reason why I'm worried about signing them up is because I'm feeling in my head that I need more money for something, whether it could be a true thing. Hey, we got to make rent, we got to make overhead. That
Mhm.
sucks. Or
Yeah.
you're like, my scoreboard is I need to make 100,000 this month, and I'm at 97. And I know, so it's like,
Yeah.
but versus, so right, we need to make a certain level of income to be okay with now being able to walk into that room and really able to fully share and love that person. Because then I try, and that's the balance we're talking about. Because if you're in scarcity, and you're worried about paying the bills, it's going to pull away from you actually optimally serving. If
100%.
you can shut that side off and walk in and totally serve, and some people can do, that's an amazing skill to be able to, like, say, like, I'm not like, I kind of like bring everything in with me. It's plain and simple. Like, it's always there, but I can't shut one side of my emotion off and go in, because it's all there, right? So,
Yep.
that's why, like, I need such a good early morning routine to get my mind and heart prepared. So that's why,
Yeah.
like, in one aspect, we need to be successful, and it's our duty to be successful, so we could go in there and fully serve that person, because you have nothing to worry about. Like imagine going and be
Yep.
like, hey, my life's taken care of. I'm good, whether you become a patient or not. Like, I'm okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my main goal is, like, I want to help you. I'm here to help you. So if someone gets like a little testy, I'm like, whoa, 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 listen, listen, listen. I don't have your problem. Like you have that
Right.
problem. Like no, no, like I don't have your problem. Like you're not doing me a favor. I'm saying it with
Yeah.
love. I'm like, you have the problem. I know you're frustrated. I know it's not convenient. It's never convenient to be in pain. It's never convenient to miss work. And it's never convenient to pull $4,000 out of your pocket to pay for something that's not convenient. It's never convenient. It's like a car and you're going on a road trip and there's nails in your tires and your brake lines are leaking. It's never convenient.
Hmm.
But what are you going to do? You're going to fix it. Like I get it. I get it's never convenient.
Yeah.
I know you don't want to come here 3 days a week. I get it. I go, but you have this problem. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, so you're now you're like, yeah, I know it sucks. I know it's never convenient.
Right.
Sickness is never convenient, but at least you're empowered to do something about it, and,
Yeah. And
and, you
I,
know,
I think nailing it too is when someone once said this to me, and I'll paraphrase a little bit,
yeah.
but basically, when money is your main intention, it will ultimately become your main problem. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
way you,
Yeah.
right, like the way you said it was, it's never enough. It's this unquenchable desert. I see the mirage, but I can't quite get
Mhm.
there. And that it's not that it shouldn't be a main focus of a business. Obviously, that's we got to have
Yeah.
enough money to do the things we got to do. But when it's your main thought for a goal, it also becomes your main problem because it is unquenchable and it will never feel solved. It will even your growth is like, oh, that was cool, but what about this? And
Mhm.
like you said, when you can walk into someone, and when I go shop for a car, for example, and someone's like, yeah, I got this, I got that, and I don't care if you drive, whatever, dude. Like, I'm buying from that guy, right? If I don't want to be ran after and I don't want to come out and look at all this, what you need, and this is why, like, hey man, this is what I think you need, this is why, and I would love to be the one to do it for you. What do you think? Right? And just
Yeah.
letting them be versus all this stuff. I think I've watched it work. I mean, it doesn't just work in business, it builds relationships, which has been our best business builder by far in our
Yeah.
town. But anyway,
Oh,
intention is a big
yeah,
deal, man.
I felt every side of the coin. I've been on every side of the coin, and you're right. Like nothing. It takes the fun out of it too. When
Mm-hmm.
when you're trying to appease an unquenchable um craving, right? So I mean, I go look. I mean, the volume thing, like because what happens if I based my week on volume? And so when I had a lower volume week, I beat myself up. Like I did not like the feeling of my heartbeat being based upon how the clinic was doing. And it affected every part of my life. So it's like it's easy for me to say that. And I really think you got to like experience every single side of the coin to be able to look back and be like, yes, I know in one aspect it looked really cool. And it did help a lot of things, but man, it just, I was just putting my value in the wrong thing,
When do
where
you
it's
think?
like, well, I'll tell you why I did it because what makes me tick is being part of a group. Like I love being part of a group, having friendly competition that push each other, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes like I guess I get it was I wouldn't say imbalance, maybe a focus imbalance on the number of people I adjusted versus the people.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
that's
why
good,
maybe
man.
I focused on signing people up, but maybe I didn't focus on keeping them as lifetime. Then I remember
Hmm.
I went in, I saw all these x-rays because in the beginning we took film x-rays and I just had
Yep.
I had a storage unit just for these x-rays. But then these people weren't there because what do you got to hold the x-rays for like 7 years or something?
7 years, yeah.
And I looked in that storage unit. I'm like, wow, these are all dead people. Or not dead people. That was my thing. I was like, I'm
Right.
not helping these people. Like these people came in, they started, they quit something like wow. And so I realized that was a new patient machine, but I wasn't a retention machine. So then I said, okay, guys, let's
Yep.
focus on lifetime care. And if it wasn't for my lifetime patients, it's like we would never survive through COVID, and stuff like that. So it's like, so I started
Yep.
looking at lifetime VIP care. Just because I think because that's when we're making an impact on their life. And even my practice now, it got more into like, yeah, like I was like, all right, guys, we got to focus more on lifetime VIP care because I took myself out of the practice for a good amount of time, and it's like, well, we got to
Hmm.
kind of start from scratch again. But that's fine. I just wanted that time off to do other things and set up other things that'll
Yeah.
be there for me in the future. But it's like, okay, now, it's like, I could see, we're back into signing up people, not lifetime. So let's like lifetime is always the end. That should always be the focus. So that's in communication from day one.
Right.
There's no like surprise. It's like, hey, listen, we're going to do through a corrective care phase. Then after that, you'll be on a maintenance phase. It's so much easier. To me, you're proving better in a maintenance phase because momentum's in the positive direction. And that could be once a week, twice a month, or as little as twice a month. So there's no like elephant in the room. Like I'm always transparent. But the thing is, it's like the excitement someone has when they sign up with you, they might not have that. That's why people quit. Because remember, if anybody leaves your practice, there's a time that happened. I don't know when that time was. So someone was in your practice and they felt, hey, I feel like I'm investing my time and I'm investing my money to be here. So they see it as an investment. But there
Hmm.
comes a time when they're with you where they think it went from investing time and money to be with you for their health to now I'm spending my time and I'm spending my money,
That's
with you
good.
guys. And so I think when they feel like that, then like they're taking my money and they're taking my time versus I'm investing my time. So there's a switch, and I don't know when it happens, but I'm
Yeah.
sure it happens. I'm sure it's a click, and this is when this is when they start missing care. This is when they start, um, trying to quit. So like, so there
Right.
comes a point, and I think by the time you're there, it's too late to have I mean, you can have the discussion, but it's a little too late. They already made in their mind, well, I'm spending too much time. So it could have been like there was traffic, and they're like, wow, it took me an hour to get here, and like, oh, I'm wasting
Hmm.
my I'm spending my time and my money to these people. So now you become the person that's taking it from them,
Yeah.
versus they were more than happy. Like, I can't wait to do this. I'm excited. I'm telling my friends. I'm telling my family. I'm excited. I'm getting so like, what is that moment? So the thing is like cultivating the culture of that person any way you can. So I remember looking back, like, what do we do? I'm looking back at, like I said, what were the bare, it's funny, right? Like, what were the bare things that I felt made the best thing? I had talks every month on different topics, whether it be nutrition or exercise, stuff like that. So I created a culture in that office. So people were
Yeah.
getting a lot of value. And I just got lazy, we just got lazy not doing them. And you can't blame COVID or anything like that. Like, I did talks, I did these things. So I was creating a culture of
Yeah.
value. So people knew that they could get exercise and nutritional advice and all these other things. So it created more of a family feel
Hmm.
versus just oh, we're coming in for treatment, right? So I really feel like they kept on believing, hey, I'm investing wow, look what I'm getting back from my investment. And look, I go there, and every time I
Right.
go there, I give my time, and look at all the value I get back from giving my time. I'm getting better. I'm correcting my problem. I'm learning
Hmm.
about nutrition. Wow, I got an exercise tip here, or there's something playing that I got good advice. Like, so they really felt that every second and all the time and money they spent, they were getting a huge amount of return on it. But I feel like the
Yeah.
reason, like when a patient shifts, man, then you got to understand, well, what in that cycle, a patient cycle, made that person think they weren't getting the care, the return on investment and the return on time. And
Hmm.
that's if you could solve that problem, man, you got a holy grail there. But I think it comes to like, what are the touch points in that office or in your office that makes them feel that they're getting, because here's the thing, when people feel better, right, they're one of the big motivators is they feel better. Okay,
Hmm.
so that motivator is gone, that they're in pain and they're willing to drop whatever. So I get it. So now the pain's gone, so they're not as motivated by the pain anymore. So what are the other motivators that are in there that's going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to maintain this, because sometimes when I feel good, it's tough to future pace what it's going to be like that when I feel bad again. Yes, I could
Right.
kind of vaguely remember how I felt bad, but I don't feel that way anymore. So it's not as painful, right?
Yeah.
So it's just being conscious of the stuff and knowing and do like, so it's about what do you do in your office that's unique and different to build that relationship. And because I know,
Yeah.
because that's the reason why they leave, is they felt that that you're taking their money and you're taking their time, versus they signed up with you because they're investing their time and they're investing their money to get a result or get well. So that's purely the reason why someone leaves your practice. They lost the value in it in some way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
and it's up to you to find out why. And what do we do in our communication, or what do we do in the patient cycle or process to continue to give them that value, even though the value will shift? So how do you give that person value when the pain is, so you were valuable because the pain was there. So now you're
Right.
going to think to yourself, now the pain's gone. Automatically think you're going to get success. The pain is gone. So what value are you able to give that patient with that has no pain? So I think you got to start like thinking in those terms, because pain's a huge
Hmm.
motivator.
Yeah. And I think that's such a I would imagine almost all young chiropractors go through that, right? Where you feel successful, you feel good, you're getting new patients, you're doing this, people are getting better. And then all of a sudden you do that where for you, it was the moment of the x-ray room.
Yeah.
For me, it's, I printed out, one day new patients and I looked at next scheduled visit and last visit. And there was way too many that were, 2 or 3 months ago, and then nothing on the books in the future. And I'm like, well, what's the point of six, seven, 800 new patients if they didn't come back? Right. And
Mhm.
so then it's like, okay, well, where did I go? And I think that's the first step that I've messed up in the past. And it's so easy is instead of going into the negative and the problems and trying to identify the problems and the external, this and that and the other, we don't just sit there and go, wait a second. Okay, what could I do that might affect all of this?
Mhm.
Because I think it's like you said, it's we look for more of a dopamine rush than we do to look in the mirror at ourselves with vulnerabilities. And we don't want to be wrong. We don't want to mess up. But again, like, can you remove that emotion and understand that identifying that issue in yourself is actually serving your people better, which ultimately was what caused this problem anyway, is you wanted to do that better. And I think if we can just get a little bit of humility going, especially as somebody that's serving somebody else and being kind of a leader in their journey of something, um, we have to remove ourselves in the sense of like, what do I want versus what do you need? And I think you get in these rhythms where pretty soon it's like, I'm more concerned about how things are running here and to keep things good versus that person that made it work good.
Right. No, I
And
agree. No, you nailed it. You nailed it. So, and let's talk about a little, we'll just touch on what we talked about last time,
yeah.
about it's an inside job. So, I mean, we could sum it up in a couple things. So basically, anything you ask your patient to do, you have to be doing it yourself behind
Yeah.
closed doors. So the whole thing was what your patients don't see, they know. What your patients don't see, they know. So what that
Mhm.
means is if I tell the patient to do rehab twice a week, twice a day for 7 days a week, spinal rehab, and I'm not doing it, innately your patient doesn't do it. It's a weird thing. It's a fourth dimensional thing. So it's like in your
Mhm.
office, listen, if you're now let's start with the basic one. We talked about chiropractors. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, are you even getting adjusted? And that's listen, it's a huge thing. You already know this. We already talked about it. It's a huge thing. And hey, listen, I
Mhm.
get it. You're the chiro in your town. You kind of don't talk to other chiros because you feel it's competition. There's never competition, guys. Competition is amateur. I remember Bob Proctor said, competition is amateur, meaning that a pro never sees competition. In fact, the greatest pros will bring anybody under their wing and give them all the advice they need. So I remember this one guy.
Mhm.
He used to be a football player, Bo Eason, and when he had a career knee injury, and then he says, "Listen, I want to do a one man show on Broadway." He loved to act and perform, and he's like, "Who's the best
Yeah.
stage guy?" And they're like, "Al Pacino's the best stage actor." The guy goes to his house and knocked on his door, and I'm like, how'd you have the balls to do that? He's like, "Well, in football, the best pros, the best guys in the league, Dan Marino, all these guys, Joe Montana, they would they would sit up with you all night and give you all the advice in the world. Like, because they came from they were great. So
Right.
they love that.
You're
He's
not a
like,
threat. Yeah.
and he goes, and the real guys that were bullshit guys or the amateurs were the guys who they might have walked around like they were the shit, but they were stingy and they were dicks. He's like, so you knew right away this guy isn't who they think they are. He's like, but the ones they were more loving. So in his mind, his paradigm was if someone's really good at their craft, they'll be more than happy to help me. Like imagine having that as a mindset. So he goes right to Al Pacino's house and knocks on the door and says, "Hey, my name's Bo Eason. I used to play football," and gives him his vision. And Pacino then invites him in. He goes, they played pool for 3.5 hours. He wrote his plan on a napkin. I mean, it's like I was like,
It's
because
crazy.
in his mind, there's good things, guy. In his mind, if someone's great, they have such an abundant mentality. And in his experience, that they're willing to open up and share and give you because they want to see everybody succeed. So a lot of times as
Mhm.
chiropractors, we go and we see competition, right? We're kind of like, and so we don't embrace, yeah. And there's certain chiros that will be stingy because they're scarcity,
Sure.
but the really good ones will be more than happy. Like, come in, let me show you how can I help you. So, I mean, and I'm saying that because like sometimes you could say, well, I run my office and I don't have an associate, so no one adjusts me. Okay. So number one, it's okay. It's okay. Like, find number one, get adjusted. Number two, if you're finding that you have trouble with patients, um, paying for care, they don't have the
Mhm.
money, they don't have the money, they don't have the money, they don't have the money. the way, remember, you just said, Bo, you said something. What can I do to do something about it? So
100%. Yep.
and no one think that you think, well, what can I do? Can I be? No, it's not about you becoming a better salesperson. It's about becoming more congruent. So what I advise you to do is find a chiropractor in your neighborhood and pay them their care plan. So if their care plan is $3,200, don't take a professional discount. Pay them the $3,200, or um, invest in yourself in something in care. So let's say, I have a
Right.
nutritionist, I pay him $3,000 a year, or you have a personal trainer and you pay. So you need to take money out of your pocket and pay someone to help you with your health. Okay. So at least you could say, hey, I just dropped $3,000 for, in your head. I'm like, I dropped $3,000 for a nutritionist, or I'm paying Cairo Bob down the road $4,000 for, like, it's like you've done it too. So now I have, when you do it yourself, now you have the right to ask that as well.
Well, and
Right.
it's like,
Right.
if we're playing music, man, and we talked a little bit about, frequency and
Yeah.
vibration, and ultimately, like, if I'm plucking a guitar and I'm like, oh, sweet, that's a G. And then I'm
Yeah.
trying to go over and play with the C sharp, like I'm not in the same tune, right? And so if I'm not doing the physical things, the mental health things, the spiritual health things, the quality time with family and friends, and all the things I need to fulfill me, how can I expect people to come
Right.
in and pay basically, like you said, one of the veneer athletes who looks like they've got it together, but they're not doing their
Right.
shit? Why would that person want to be around me? Because it doesn't take very long to smell bullshit, right? It's even
Yeah.
from a generic average mind, they're just going to know something's just not right with that guy or girl,
Yeah, and it's coming from the head and not the heart. So like
big time.
if I'm eating a certain way, if I'm living by the tenets to have a great family relationship, if I'm getting adjusted, if I'm doing my rehab, like if I'm doing that myself, then it's coming from here. And then I had mentioned, like, when I realized that, then in school we were taught never to hire any patients. That would not be a bad thing to do because you run the risk of losing the patient, of course. But then for me, I was like, well, wait a second. You know, I'm congruent, like I do these things the best I can. And I would take stuff out of my office that, like, there was certain rehab stuff I didn't do. So I'm like, I got to rip it off the wall because I don't do it. Right. So
Yeah.
I realized that was a huge thing. And I said, I went into, like, I hired patients because these patients, what did they do? They paid sometimes I would hire someone and then we get free. Again, it's the free chiro care thing that takes the value away from the doctor and takes away value away from your staff. So if you're giving your staff free chiro, or you as a chiro are getting free adjustments from your buddy down the road, you don't have value over it. So my patients, remember, they paid money. My patients had to sell their bikes, sell a car, get care. They had to get a little loan. They had to borrow money. Like, so they had to go through the uncomfortableness of finding the money where they didn't think they had it, but they also went through the process, the patient process of getting well. So they didn't get a miracle overnight.
Yeah.
It
Right.
took 3 4 months. They went through retracing. They went through the doubts, but they came ahead and they looked back, and when they got well, they looked back, it was so worth it. So you see, imagine that staff person going over financials at someone versus the staff person that gets their car for free. They never went through the process. So it's a different, it's come from a different place. I remember Shannon, she
Yep.
used to be like, well, hey, wait a second, wait a second. Like, I had to sell this to get the care I needed here. I went through this, I get off these drugs and stuff. I used to be a nurse. I actually quit to become a nurse to come work here to help you. So it's coming from a whole different, I can't train that. I can't script that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's one thing that we cannot script. The thing is, like, it's the person, that patient had an experience. Now they're willing to work for you. And they had, oh yeah, I know what it's like. Yeah, it was a lot of money. I agree. It was for me too. It's like, so they're coming from such a different place. And I found that congruency factor was huge. It was
Yes.
tremendous, tremendous.
Well,
Even
and
though, even though my staff now, they're great, dude. Don't get me wrong, they're amazing, they're sweet, they're awesome. But I know at the end of the day, they didn't pull out of their, and I love them. And this doesn't make them wrong. They didn't pull out of their pocket to pay for the care they're getting. Okay. You follow what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? So it, no matter how good they are, they'll never reach it. They'll never reach a deep rooted part of congruency.
Yeah.
That's someone who paid for the care. Like, so whatever I'm asking that patient, whatever you're asking the patient of doing, A, are you doing, or have you done it? And not even have you done, you need to be doing it. So it's like, shit, man, I got to eat better. Why am I eating better? Well, because I have people that are counting on me, and then they're going to listen to me better when I'm actually doing what I say what I'm telling them to do. And
Yeah.
it's that, just that one concept of being congruency. Like, you don't have to change anything in your office if you just say, you know what, let me just first start being a patient of what I tell my patients to do. So the doctor, why don't you become the patient? So get your adjustments, do the rehab that you need to do. Whatever you tell your patient to do, just start doing that for 90 days. And that alone,
Yep.
you'll start to see your entire practice grow. And you're like, wow, because it's what they don't see, they really know. So
You hit another point too, man, of not only if you're not congruent and if you're not doing what you need to do and doing what you tell people to do, not only will it not work, but you won't get the opportunity for the employee that's been through it to then share it because they're not going to do it because you were full of
yeah,
shit in the beginning.
yeah,
So, and this is where there's so many things. It's easy to look back retrospectively and go, wow, good thing we were doing this because now I can see what that's done for me. Right.
yeah.
But in the moment, we just have to have the faith that if we're in alignment with who we are, where we want to go, and we're serving people and not taking just to take, um, the road is going to look super different and timelines are going to look different. But you can be confident that by sticking to what I need and should do for the right reasons, it doesn't matter what the road looks like because I'm going the right way. Right? You nailed it with momentum is going the right way. And we get pushed through some areas that we don't see coming, but it ends up always being where we need to be, right? And it
Yeah.
ends up with the people we need to be around because we were the person we needed to be.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's not even like they sense the bullshit. It's like I know sometimes like we know it's what's the right thing to do, and sometimes we don't
Mhm.
do it. And you gotta ask yourself, well,
Yeah.
why aren't you doing it? So the thing is like I would tell anybody right now, if you start from scratch, like what things do you absolutely do? If it's just getting adjusted, then just talk about adjustments, just talk
Hmm.
about the chiropractic adjustments. So, and then when you get your, again, let's talk about the Gandhi thing. I told you that before, like
Yes.
my son,
Yes.
is a woman takes her son to Gandhi and says, listen, I need you to tell him to stop eating sugar. And he goes, come back in 3 weeks. And then she comes back in 3 weeks. She's like, hey, I need you here. I'm back. Can you please tell my son to stop eating sugar? And he's like, stop eating sugar. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me that 3 weeks ago? He goes, because I had to stop eating sugar.
Yep.
I
That's
mean,
so
that
big.
sums up the whole thing. So talk about a guy with wisdom. It's like, because it's so simple, but yet it's so fourth dimensional, meaning that like, what do you mean?
Hmm.
Like, so if I start eating better, my patients, yes, because it's coming
Hmm.
from a different place. I think you're right. You're hitting the certain note, and that certain note resonates. Like versus like, hey, listen, I know what we should eat. I know we should drink water,
Hmm.
but if I'm not drinking, like there's a difference between knowing what to do and then doing the thing that you know to do. So
Right.
that's why I say so. And I always speak, guys. I never speak from judgment. I say, hey, listen, like give yourself a break. Like if you don't have your routine and your morning routine and your nutrition down, your exercise down, or you're not taking your supplements, like just don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Like talk about what you
Right.
do know. And so like so it's easy on the doctor. And so like start with the adjustment. Like how I'm talking to a patient is how I'm going to talk to a chiropractor right now. Like guys, just start getting adjustments regularly, not just when you're in
Hmm.
pain or not here and there. Like can you just get on an adjustment routine? That's the first thing I would ask to do. And then you
Yep.
know what? And then listen, guys, like, and I'll be more than willing to help you. Like, maybe start getting the nutrition down a little bit better, and then when you're there, like you don't have to be perfect. Then start talking about it. Like it's okay that
Hmm.
you're like if you're a chapter ahead, like if I'm reading a book and I'm a chapter ahead, I could be the teacher of someone who's on. If I'm on chapter 2 and you're on chapter 1, I could be the teacher of chapter 2, right? So it's like you don't have to be
Yep.
perfect. It's not about being perfect. I think a lot of people think, well, no, it's not about perfect, but at least be in the process with them. Like, hey, listen, like I'm eating really good. I don't always, I'm not perfect. I fall short. I get it. I like my cookies too, but I'm trying the best I can. So as long as if you could get into the I'm trying the best I can and I'm doing the best I can, but if I'm trying and doing the best I can, never would that's the message I gotta preach. I can't say this is how I got to eat. This is how you got to do it. Like, because then I'm coming from
Yeah.
a perfect spot. No, I'm not there. So I gotta communicate at the spot I'm at. And you know what? Like I
Yep.
get it, guys. Like if you're not going to adjust it regularly, I don't see why people wouldn't come in when they feel they have to come in. How come they're not following the plan? They're just coming in like they're on 3 times a week. They're coming in twice a month because that's probably how much you probably get adjusted twice a month. But like get adjusted if you say come in 2 or 3 times a week, come in, you get adjusted 2 or 3. Like just say what you're going to do and just I would
Hmm.
I would I would have everybody shrink their practice or clean their practice to like what do you definitely do and then do that. and then teach that. And then
That's
and then
good.
you're like, man, I want to add nutrition. Great. So why don't you get on a nutrition plan? And when you get a hold of that, because then you know the ins and the outs, you know the ups and the downs, now you could communicate that, then hold a nutrition talk and
Yeah.
then share yourself. Hey, listen, I'm not perfect, but listen, this is what I found has been working for me. And then introduce it as you got it. Like if you want to have home rehab and you would sell like Tabor Smith, I love his spinal hygiene kit. It's
That
like
thing's awesome.
if you don't do it, then why don't you get it from Tabor? Do it for 60 days or 90 days or 66 days. There was that study that 28 days builds a habit, right? But around
Hmm.
68 days, it might have been in that book Grit. It might be, but in 68 days,
Huh.
the uh the research shows that not doing the thing becomes more painful. So, okay, I'll say it again. So the 28 days builds a habit, but then at 68 days or something, 68 days, it's if I don't wake up and do my cardio, if I don't wake up and do my prayer time, if I don't wake up and eat correctly, that is actually more painful not doing
Yeah.
it than doing it. So now it's like the days off, like shit, like you have to do it because it's like if you don't do it,
Yep.
you feel like shit, right? So maybe do something for like 70 days. That's where the 75 hard, they got that
Yeah.
from like
Yep.
because by that time not doing it is more painful. So the first month doing it's painful, but now it gets to the point where like if I don't do it, I actually feel the difference. So let's say you do
Yep.
something and then say, okay, I'm gonna give myself 70 days. And when I'm doing this way, now I can introduce that into my practice. Now I'll introduce the spinal hygiene and stuff. But I think once you do it, it's just it's an unspoken no one talks about this, and it's really the difference between, well, how come when Bo talks in a CrossFit gym, he got 16 people? What the fuck? Like, I went in and I belong to the CrossFit. Everybody knows I'm a chiropractor. I even give some adjustments away when I'm in there. Like, how come, like, no one, because, and I'm not putting, like, just because
Sure.
there's something in him congruently. That's what said. There's just something, there's that it
Hmm.
factor, and the it factor is living it more than just talking it. I think like the living it is a better sermon than talking it. And so when he's living it, then he talks about it. When he talks about it, he's just backing up what he's living versus
Yeah.
talking about something that I don't do. I'm talking about something that I do that's affected me life. And there's a lot better congruency. So that's why we're not judging. Maybe I want this to convict you enough to say, hey, let me not talk about these things I'm not doing until I'm doing them. But first of
Right.
all, if I'm a chiropractor, it's as simple as that. Ask, Cal Jim, like how many doctors aren't getting adjusted? Just get
More than we
adjusted
think.
routinely. Yeah. And just don't, just I know you could teach your spouse how to adjust you and stuff like that, but like go through that. Like if it means you get in your car and you drive, like honestly, you're asking your patients to drive to you, right?
Hmm.
So like drive to a local colleague, get adjusted. Yeah, well, why it's getting in the way of my afternoon. I know that your adjustments get in the way of people's life too.
Hmm.
Like just practice, start doing what you ask your patients to do. And I think you're going to be a lot more sensitive and you're going to connect with them on a higher level when you tell them to do those things. Like it comes from just a different place. Again, it's like
Yeah.
it's like hiring a person that never experienced chiropractic versus hiring a patient who has a deeper rooted connection with it to be able to communicate it and just on all types of levels. So that's where really we mean is like just start doing, or at least whatever you sell and tell, make sure you're doing.
Yep.
Doesn't
And
have
I
to be
think
perfect, but just make sure you're doing it.
100%. And I think a big takeaway too is, we talk about like, okay, you got to do the things you want these people to do. But the ultimate reality is, yes, that's true. But like the main issue isn't even all this stuff. The main issue is not enough people coming in. It's not new patients. It's not staff. It's not process. It's always us, right? And I
Mhm,
think it's easy to get distracted with all these things that, oh, I can go fix that and I can
mhm,
do something productive. But what I love about what we've talked about in the title Inside Job is that the simplicity of this is that if you just start with you,
mhm,
the law of attraction is not made up, right? The fourth dimension stuff we're talking about, the vibrational frequencies, like the momentum, if we want to simplify it to a less woohoo word, right? Momentum is real. And I think when we realize that it's my momentum, not anybody else's, and then it's who wants to be carried with that with me. And so I think to simplify it, the whole idea of an inside job is do the things that you would want your perfect patient to do and don't feel like you got to do them all at once, but
Yeah.
make progress, right? Start with this one, but don't stay here. Go to 2, 3, 4, 5, and
Yeah.
just watch. I can't even tell you, just watch. It's going to absolutely blow your mind.
I mean, and be graceful with yourself as well, just like you would be graceful with the
Yes.
patient.
Yes.
Like just be graceful. So yeah, I mean, so you mess up. So what? But at least you're doing it, and it's gonna make a huge difference. And then you'll get better and better and better.
Yes.
And it makes you more human. I think a lot of times we feel we got to show up perfect.
Yep.
And I think some people I think they're gonna be more attracted to someone who's real. So
Yeah.
it's okay I mean, a real person is what people attract to. And like they want the ups and downs. Everybody loves a rocky story, so it's just, you don't have to be perfect. And sometimes you
Right.
come from this thing, well, like, and my associates be like, if someone wasn't improving, they're like, well, you're not doing your rehab twice a day, 7 days a week. I'm like, dude, who the hell is doing the rehab twice a day, I'm not, you're not.
Honestly.
So it's like, let's not do
Right.
it. Like, let's not find a reason why, like, oh, see, you're failing because of this. No, it's like, it's okay to be like, I don't know why you're not getting, like, and I don't know is a great response. It's a very mature response. So like, how come this is I don't know. I don't know. I'm not with you 24/7. I don't know, but hey, listen, we're going to work through it. It's just like, I don't know is a fine answer too, guys. Sometimes we always feel we need to give them an answer. And sometimes we're making up stuff, giving them answers, and it's actually hurting us even more, where someone could be like, listen, I don't know why you're having headaches all of a sudden. It could be 1,000 different variables. But all I know is I'm gonna adjust you. I'm gonna remove the interference from the nervous system, and then the body will do exactly what it needs to do. So the headache might be part of what the body needs to do, but we're gonna remove the interference,
Right.
and the body always knows anything. I tell people, like, if I tell you, I'm just guessing. Okay, so I don't like to guess.
Yeah.
So, but the thing
Right.
is that I'll tell you what knows the answer is your body, and if that body has the least amount of interference, it's going to be able to do it exactly what it has to do. And like, so get him like, and this is where, like, a lot of times I don't know is a fine answer. It's like, because if a lot of times I mean, we're guessing anyway. And sometimes I feel like, well, if I guess, then the person's, they're going to hold on to your guess as a, no, it's like, it's
Yeah.
okay. But like, I don't know. And you get them back to like, what do we do here? Remove the interference. The body knows exactly what it needs to do. I don't. I'm here to remove the interference, and so you have the best chance of adapting and healing from whatever you're going through. And like we know,
Yeah.
sometimes we're going through a symptom because it's exactly what the body needs to do at that time. So why would I stop it? So it's just getting, and these are the teaching moments that make lifetime patience. But a lot of times, if we try to be perfect and we come in with like, are you drinking enough water? Like, well, I remember when Sid Williams used to talk about like, when's a potato a pill? Where we used to tell someone to take vitamin C. It's like, well, no, like I get what you're doing. Like, we're trying to give them something to do, or like ice it. It's like, well, when is ice a pill? It's like, how about like, if it's red and inflamed, maybe that's what the body needs to do. Like, why would you ice it and affect with that? Like, so I love that. When is a potato a pill? Where we're actually giving, oh, you have a headache, eat lettuce, or so, like something, like we're trying to give them something where we're trying to, again, treat the symptom, versus like, hey, we're removing the interference and the body knows it. So it's it's easy to get into a treatment phase versus, hey, let's get back to the principle we do. So there's a lot of things we do because we want the best for them and we want to be the authority and we want to do these things, but we realize, like, at the end of the day, like, are we really leading them in the right direction? So like, again, if I don't know, I say, hey, Bo, I don't know. I don't know. There could be 1,000 different reasons why, but what I do know is, like, your body knows exactly what it needs to do. This could be part of what it needs to do. Maybe there's something toxic going on. So you're here to get adjusted. We're going to remove the interference, and the body's going to do what it needs to do. Now, is drinking water good for you? Yes. Is eating better nutrition good? Yeah, these are all the other factors that help a healthy body when you're functioning properly. But even doing those factors, like, how do we know it's not the body expressing health and doing what it needs to do? So whatever it is, I know if we're doing A, B, and C the best you can, then you got to really leave it up to the body. Like you can simplify it because there's only so much we could control that process versus you're allopathically chasing things. Well, I drink more water. Which water should I drink? Osmosis reverse. It becomes like very allopathic again.
Yeah.
Versus,
I get it.
back to the, I move the bone, God does the rest type of thing. So.
Well, it's awesome, man. I think I know this one recorded, so luckily we got this one on the books. But I really appreciate you, man. And I think what's cool is, obviously, the first conversation is just between us because we forgot to record it. But everything that you said and everything we talked about is so similar. It's congruent. It's not, like you said, it's you living who you are and not making things up to sound well or to win a day. And I just really appreciate you being a name in our industry and being not just a name, but an example of somebody that honestly is living life the way that we should, or at least trying your best to. And I really appreciate you being that example for us,
I
man.
know.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you're doing, man, so much. Thank you so much. All right,
Right
guys,
on.
if anybody has any questions, just you could just DM me on Instagram. That's probably the best, at Dr.
Yep.
Zaino, and I answer all the comments, and I'm the one who I do it all. So yeah, I mean, that's the best way to do it, to keep the conversation going. I have nothing to sell. Just contact me.
Right. Well, I
All right.
appreciate you, man.
I
And
appreciate you, Bo.
we'll talk soon, and have a good day, buddy. Thank you.
God bless you, man. Thank you.
You too.